Hello and thank you for joining me on a journey through one of the unresolved mysteries of Egyptology. The ancient Egyptians left us a puzzle that continues to elude complete decipherment. This mystery revolves around the elusive whereabouts of Punt, a land that intrigued the pharaohs of ancient Egypt, who referred to it as Tenetjer, meaning God's land. Punt stood as a distant realm abundant with precious resources, including incense, ebony, ivory, aromatic resins, cinnamon, fragrant woods, and gold. Over the course of a millennia, the Egyptians engaged in prosperous trade with this mystical land. They also imported the exotic skins of giraffes, panthers, and cheetahs, which adorned temple priests, and at times even the live animals themselves. Beyond its role as a trading partner, Punt held a revered status within the Egyptian culture, being regarded as their ancestral home. It was considered a spiritual sanctuary, which was often mentioned in accounts such as the tale of the shipwrecked sailor. After deciphering the Egyptian hieroglyphics using the Rosetta Stone, scholars started interpreting these ancient texts. Queen Hatshepsut's temple inscriptions at Luxor revealed that her divine mother, Hathor, hailed from Punt, implying that the pharaohs held Puntland as the origin of their own culture. Consequently, debates ensued regarding the origins of the pharaohs and the specific location of this land, Punt. Hatshepsut and the other pharaohs dispatched grand expeditions to Punt, commanding seagoing fleets comprising thousands of men. However, no maps, directions, or definitive distance indicating the precise location of Punt were left behind by the Egyptians. To this day, Punt remains shrouded in mystery, and the hieroglyphic texts also lack clarity when it comes to pinpointing the whereabouts of this mysterious land. The ancient Egyptians first began sailing to this land about 4,500 years ago, establishing a contact with the land for a span of approximately 1,300 years. While in Punt, the Egyptians exchanged their agricultural produce such as grain and linen for a treasure of exotic commodities like aromatic substances, rare woods, and a lot of other goods that were scarce or unattainable within Egypt. The Egyptians left us an abundance of evidence enlightening on the existence of Punt. The earliest explicit mention of this land dates back to the Old Kingdom, as revealed by the renowned Palamo stone. This historical artifact originated from the reign of King Sahure of Egypt's 5th dynasty around the 25th century BCE. It documents a momentous expedition to Punt that resulted in the triumphant return with a staggering 80,000 measures of myrrh. Myrrh was a highly sought after resin, thus making it the most prized commodity obtained from Punt. It was employed in the creation of incense that was cherished by the Egyptians for their temple rituals. Notably, gold from Punt can be traced as far back as the time of Pharaoh Khufu in the 4th dynasty. This implies that these two realms had been trading for a long time. The Palamo stone further highlights that Sahure's expedition also acquired 23,030 wooden staves, 6,000 measures of electrum, and other valuable items. From the 25th century BCE to the 11th century BCE, numerous expeditions journeyed to Punt. These expeditions occurred during the reigns of the 6th, 11th, 12th, and 18th dynasties of Egypt. The 12th dynasty witnessed the celebration of the land of Punt, honoring it in the popular literary work known as the Tale of the Shipwrecked Sailor. Following an interruption in trade between Egypt and Punt during the Second Intermediate Period, a famous expedition to Punt was set in motion under the proposal of an oracle of the revered deity Amun. This directive was bestowed upon Hatshepsut, the renowned queen of the 18th dynasty, commanding her to organize a historic voyage to the sacred realm of God's land. The chronicles of this crusade have been recorded in detail on the walls of her temple in Dair al-Bari, which is situated on the west bank of Thebes. The artistic depictions within the temple provide details about the royal figures, the inhabitants of Punt, the dwellings, and the diverse range of trees found on the land. Notably, these depictions also include vivid portrayals of the sea voyage, as well as the cordial reception extended by the chief of Punt alongside his queen. This well-illustrated expedition of Hatshepsut happened in the 8th year of her reign. Hatshepsut dispatched Nesi, a high-ranking official of Nubian descent, with a fleet comprising 5 ships, each equipped with 30 rowers. These bold long-distance seafaring endeavors marked a significant milestone in human history as they propelled advancements in maritime technology. The inscriptions discovered in Hatshepsut temple revealed the amazement of the Puntites upon the Egyptians' arrival. According to the temple reliefs, the land of Punt was under the rule of King Pharaoh and Queen Ati during that period. The momentous expedition resulted in the acquisition of a treasure of goods, termed as the marvels of the land of Punt. The hieroglyphs exclaim, "Loading of the ships very heavily with the marvels of the country of Punt, all goodly fragrant woods of God's land, heaps of myrrh resin, with fresh myrrh trees, with ebony and pure ivory, with green gold of Emu, with cinnamon wood, cassit wood, with 2 kinds of incense, eye cosmetics, with apes, monkeys, dogs, and with the skins of the southern panther, with natives and their children. Never was brought the like of this for any king who has been since the beginning." Interestingly, the myrrh trees brought from Punt may have been planted in front of Hatshepsut's temple, as their roots are still visible today. One grand scene captured within the temple depicts the renowned land of Punt itself, showcasing beehive-shaped houses on stilts shaded by palm and potentially myrrh trees. Another scene portrays Hatshepsut's fleet of ships departing for and arriving at that distant country, laden with the marvels of the land of Punt and preparing for their return voyage. A final scene portrays dignitaries from Punt presenting their treasures to Queen Hatshepsut. The tradition of trading with Punt endured through Hatshepsut's successors in the 18th dynasty, including Thutmose III and Amenhotep III. The trade relations with Punt further persisted even into the early years of the 20th dynasty, before eventually stopping prior to the end of Egypt's New Kingdom. Following the decline of the New Kingdom, Punt gradually transformed into a realm enveloped in mythical tales and legends. Nevertheless, the appeal of Punt persisted, and Egyptians continued to compose love songs and poetic verses about its magnificence. The final documented expedition to Punt took place under the reign of Ramesses III in the 12th century BCE, shortly before the collapse of the New Kingdom of Egypt. An ancient papyrus account unveils that Ramesses assembled great transport vessels laden with a vast range of goods from Egypt and went on a successful journey to the land of Punt. They returned unharmed and respected, with their vessels overflowing with the prized products of God's land. Although the papyrus does not provide many details, it does indicate that Ramesses III's expedition covered a portion of their journey via the Red Sea. Contemporary scholars have convincingly established that during the Middle and New Kingdoms, pharaohs' intent on reaching Punt was important. They would construct their ships on the Nile, dismantle them, transport the components across the desert for approximately 100 miles from Coptos, where the Nile is closest to the Red Sea, and then reassemble the vessels at the ancient Red Sea harbor of Sau. From there, they will set sail towards Punt. Upon their return, the ships will be unloaded at Sau, and the goods will be transported using donkey caravans back to the Nile, where they will be transferred onto other vessels for the journey to the capital at Thebes. A few years ago, a discovery of inscribed stele, man-made caves containing labeled cargo boxes, and well-preserved ship timbers and sailing equipment was made at the archaeological site of Massa along the Red Sea coast of Egypt. It is securely dated to the first half of the 2nd millennium BCE, and it affirmed that Massa served as the ancient port of Sau. The immense investment of labor and resources required to construct and transport ships across such distances attests to the extraordinary value placed on the goods from Punt, and the significant threat posed by the control of the southern trade routes by Kama to Egypt. The precise dimensions and whereabouts of Punt have eluded us over the centuries. For more than 150 years, scholars and scientists have engaged in spirited debates regarding the geographic location of this ancient land. Various theories have emerged, with some proposing that its exotic nature suggests a distant location such as the Horn of Africa or southern Arabia. However, contemporary Egyptologists offer an alternative perspective, suggesting that Punt may have been situated in closer proximity to Egypt, like between eastern Sudan and northern Ethiopia. The notion of Punt's connection to the Arabian Peninsula initially emerged in the late 1850s. However, Kenneth Kitchen searched through the linguistic evidence found within the Egyptian records and made a deep find, the mention of the ruler of Punt, who was identified by the name Chief Parahu. Kitchen skillfully proved that Punt could not have been an Arab civilization. This conclusion was drawn from the absence of the letter P in the Arabic language that was spoken during that time. If the Arabs had indeed referred to Punt or to their leader Parahu, one would expect the pronunciation to have been Fund and Farahu respectively. In contrast, the Egyptians who possessed both the letters F and P in their language could not have made a translation error. Thus, Kitchen's investigation effectively refuted the Arabian theory. Subsequently, Auguste Mariette contributed more substantial evidence that further undermined the Arabian hypothesis. This additional information served to strengthen the case against linking Punt to the Arabian Peninsula. One piece of evidence pointing to Punt's location is a hieroglyphic list left by Pharaoh Thutmose III at Karnak Temple in Thebes, which includes Punt among the lands to the south of Egypt. Another significant clue comes from Hatshepsut's bas-relief, which clearly depicts African animals such as giraffes and rhinoceros as products or natives of Punt. These animals were not found in Arabia, providing further support for an African connection. Auguste Mariette, after a thorough analysis, concluded that Punt was likely situated near the Somali coast, a region known for its historic association with frankincense and myrrh trade. African myrrh is still native to the Horn of African countries like Somalia, Djibouti, Eastern Ethiopia, and northeastern Kenya. Inscriptions from the Old Kingdom and Middle Kingdom indicate that the Red Sea was not the only option, and the overland route through Nubia was chosen when friendly kingdoms ruled the land. However, when hostile kingdoms blocked the overland route, the Red Sea option became more favorable. This possibly reflected the formidable power of Imperial Khama, which at its site in the mid-2nd millennium BCE would lead major invasions deep into Egypt. This further solidifies an African origin of Punt. Additionally, relief scenes found in Tomb 143 in Thebes depict a trading encounter between an Egyptian expedition led by Thutmose II's chief treasurer and traders from Punt. This encounter likely took place at a river port rather than a seaport, suggesting that the Nile route through Nubia was sometimes used to reach Punt, or was as well part of it. This further justifies the location of Punt was in northeastern Africa. In a 2010 study, researchers from the University of California conducted oxygen isotope analysis on hair samples from mummified baboons which were brought from Punt. The results showed that the isotope samples of baboons from Eritrea and eastern Ethiopia matched, indicating a connection to Punt. Baboons from Yemen, on the other hand, did not show the same match. This suggests that Punt was likely a specific region encompassing eastern Ethiopia and all of Eritrea. Further support for the Horn of Africa is the location of Punt comes from a discovery made by Polish archaeologists in June 2018. They found the only depiction of a secretary bird in the temple of Hatshepsut. The secretary bird is found exclusively in open African grasslands and savannas. Another suggested pronunciation for Punt by the ancient Egyptians is Puenet or Puen, which could potentially correspond to the ancient town in Somalia that was known to the Greeks as Opon. It is also important to note that the ancient Greeks referred to Puntland as Opon. The majority opinions after research places Punt in the Horn of Africa based on the fact that the products of Punt were abundantly found in that location, but were less common or sometimes absent in Arabia. Richard Pankhurst states that Punt had been identified with territory on both the Arabian and the Horn of African coasts. However, consideration of the articles that the Egyptians obtained from Punt are primarily of African origin. This leads us to suppose that the term Punt probably applied more to African than Arabian territory. However, now that a region has been identified, new questions were being raised as to which country within that region was the true location of Punt. The most probable location of Punt is that it spanned either the entire region or at least parts of northern Ethiopia, Eritrea, Djibouti, and Somalia, extending from the Red Sea to the Nile.